Hello, welcome back to another episode on Red Bull. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and leave a like. Let's get into the story now. Thanks everyone for the kind words and advice.
My wife and I met when we were teenagers. And we were both virgins. I'd had a couple of previous girlfriends. But my wife had never been kissed or held hands. She pursued me while I was already in a relationship, which ended quickly when my girlfriend at the time cheated on me. In retrospect, I now realize that, despite wanting to, in my entire life I've never approached a woman or asked one out. After a few months of dating we became exclusive. She was bright and talented. Not necessarily pretty, but a good person with a big heart. I fell for her. And I'm still in love with her. All of these years later. As a hormonal teen, I was frustrated by how slowly our physical relationship progressed. But I really did love her and I didn't want to make her feel pressured in any way. I figured I was in this for the long haul. In the end, we were together for well over 2 years before we slept together for the first time. It was comfortable and relaxed. And much to my surprise she came. A year later we married. We always got along well. With the normal level of young married hiccups. Our intimacy, however, really suffered. I am a very sexual person. And have taken matters into my own hands between 5 to 10 times a day. Every day. Since I was 12 or so. I have a very short refractory period. So I'm usually ready to go again within a few minutes. But in 30 years I can think of only 1 or 2 occasions when my wife was interested in a second round. I knew I had a much higher libido than she did. And I really struggled to keep on an even mental and emotional keel with our mismatched drives. Something which continues to this day. Worse than the frequency, maybe 2 to 3 times a month. I'd be up for every day but could be happy with 3 times a week. Was the feeling that it was all for my benefit. That it was all just mercy sex. With my very limited sexual experience. I figured this was just part of the differences between men and women. Although I could recall some of my previous girlfriends being very passionate. It still hurt to not feel wanted or desired. Due to some infertility issues on her part. We had children later in life. Her libido went through the roof during pregnancy. But not for me. I'd come home every day and find sex toys and magazines in the bed. But she'd still turn me down. I'd been rejected so often that I felt completely undesirable. And frankly still do. I tried talking to her about how it made me feel. But despite my insisting that it wasn't the case, she concluded that my problem was the fact that she masturbated at all. Frankly, I find it hot as hell. And told her so. I just didn't want to feel like it was a replacement for me. She flipped out. And still brings it up now. A couple of decades later. I still can't make her understand that it was the contrast between our non-existent sex life and her solitary activities that bothered me. Our lovemaking normally consists of her reading erotica while I touch her until she comes. After which she lets me climb on top of her. She rarely touches me. If I kiss her she turns away. There's nothing I can do to arouse her. No matter how hard I try she needs to read or view pornography. It's been this way for all but the first year or 2 of our relationship. She doesn't like to give or receive oral. Toys are only for her when she's alone. I've laid awake at night crying. Imagining what it must be like to have someone look at me with desire. To have someone touch or kiss me like they wanted me. Replaying the same dozen experiences with previous girlfriends when I was a young teenager through my mind. I feel pathetic. I travel sometimes for work. And I've been approached by other women. I've always been completely faithful to my wife. Objectively I know I'm a decent looking guy. I'm in okay shape. I'm well educated and have a great professional career. Logically I know all of that. But internally I feel like I must be awful and unlovable. We've been to marriage counselors periodically throughout our marriage. But my wife always insists that everything's fine. We go to address my feelings about our relationship. Last night I lost it again. And had one of my breakdowns with her. These have become more common over the last year or 2. I'm not proud to say. For the first time she said something which snapped it all into focus for me. She told me that she thinks she might be gay. I knew she was attracted to women. She'd told me that early on. But I'd assumed she was bi. My wife might be gay. All of my feelings of being unwanted. Of being undesired. Nearly all of my sexual experiences were with someone who didn't want me in the first place. I am numb. I'm in shock. I feel like I've lost my entire sexual life. Which is a huge part of me. And it's all wasted. All gone. My youth. My virility. It's all gone. I want to die. It's my worst nightmare. The fact that it was all for nothing. The fact that it wasn't just me. The fact that it was my inexperience that blinded me to the fact that this wasn't normal. It's all been taken from me and there's nothing I can do to bring it back. TL. Doctor. 30 years without passion. Wife may be gay. Edit. My wife seems to think that this changes nothing. She actually shrugged and changed the subject afterwards. I know she would never consider opening the relationship. And with our teenage children and my providing 99% of our income, a divorce is going to be brutal. I am so lost. I have no idea what to do next. Edit 2. I really appreciate the comments. I've read them all. I do want to clarify something. I know that I have an unusual libido. I would never expect a partner to match that. It's been years since I've approached her more than once a week. It's honestly not the frequency that bothers me. I'd be, well, not thrilled, but basically okay with the current 2 to 3 times a month if it felt like she actually wanted or desired me. I just want to be touched or acknowledged in some way. Not ignored or treated like a chore. To add to the irony, I started developing Ed about 10 years ago. But only when she's around. So I have to take pills to perform. I've clearly conditioned myself into an unhealthy place. Update me 50 male with my wife 50F. 30 years. It all makes sense and I'm crushed. Edit. I appreciate all of the responses. I'm still drinking. So I'm a bit numb. Sorry if I don't make much sense. I don't even really drink. I can't go on like this. I'm going to have an affair. I hate that I'm in this place. Hate that the dishonesty and ugliness of it all. Hate what it's doing to me. I don't want to be this person. I hope THT she'll never know. I can't let her know. I can't do that to my family. I have no idea how I'm going to go about this. I've never, ever approached a woman in my entire life. I'm incredibly inexperienced. I'm physically very recognizable. And while I don't live in a small town, I am very well known. I may not be able to do it at all. But I feel some relief in the decision. I feel a bit lighter. We'll see if I still feel the same how I feel after I sober up. Thanks for all of the good advice. I appreciate all of the comments. I've read them all. I've been drinking. Something I rarely do. So my apologies in advance. I do want to clarify a few things that multiple folks brought up. I know now that I'm sexually unusual. But given my relative lack of experience, I always assumed I was average. It never occurred to me that it was even possible that any partner could or would want to match me. I've very rarely approached my wife more than once a week. Let alone multiple times a day. I'm not going to say that I'm happy with being intimate a couple of times a month. But that has never been my primary issue with our sex life. As I mentioned in my post and in my replies, my wife will not touch or look at me when we're intimate. I touch her while she reads erotica. And after she finishes, she allows me to climb on her. It's clearly a chore. Not something she enjoys. And it hurts me like hell. That lack of experience also led me to assume that my wife was average. And that women in general just weren't sexual. I know that sounds hard to believe. As saturated as our culture is with sex. But for every reference to a sexy woman, there's another to a disinterested wife being pestered by her husband. And I believe the one that fit with my experience. I have never felt wanted or physically desired in any way. Save for a couple of girlfriends in my early teens. And I'd managed to rationalize even that as being about something different than the possibility that they were attracted to me sexually. I am no doormat. I have a strong personality. And I tend to be very dominant. Both socially and professionally. I did not sit idly by and suffer all of these years. Once it began to dawn on me that there really was something wrong. I had multiple tear-filled conversations with my wife about our intimate life. I begged, pleaded, and demanded counseling on multiple occasions. In front of the counselor, she'd insist everything was fine, she loved me, which I believe. Was attracted to me. Enjoyed our love life. And it was all just in my head. I honestly don't know if she believes she's telling the truth. Maybe she is. When I talked about the idea of divorce being brutal, I wasn't talking about finances. I'm talking about the act of breaking up a family with beautiful young teen children and a wife who is completely dependent on me. A wife I happen to love. I'm talking about the betrayal she'll feel and the emotional pain of ending 30 years together. Not something as meaningless as money. I'm sorry for the rant. I confronted her last night about her throwaway comment about thinking she might be gay. When she first said it, she shrugged it off and changed the subject. I asked her what she thought that meant for our relationship. I knew she'd never accept an open relationships or divorce. And I was right. She insisted that whether it was true or not, it changed nothing. That she'd been a good wife and would continue to do so. She burst into tears at the very thought that our marriage was threatened. And it took me more than an hour to calm her down again. She was completely destroyed at the thought. In a way, she's right. It doesn't really matter why our sex life is what it is. She promised more frequency, which she's done previously. But I know that within a few months things will just revert back. And the low frequency isn't the part that hurts the most anyway. I have no idea what to do or where to go from here. I can't cheat on her. I love her and my family. I can't destroy them. I want to die. I want to castrate myself so that I don't have these feelings anymore. I just want to carve sex out of me. I'm going to ask my doctor for Prozac and hope that it kills my libido. And I honestly feel like that's my only hope. If it doesn't work, I don't know how I'm going to make it. I can't go on feeling this way. TLDR. Talk to wife. Went badly. Losing hope.
Thank you for watching.